start and finish on time. So Alicia, do you want to bring greetings organizationally and then we'll go from there?
Sure. Thanks to each of you for making time to be here. One of the things that we know for sure is always the case, and then even more true during pandemic times, is that we never quite make enough space for our own learning. And we certainly don't make enough space to be sure that we refill our cups. And pouring from an empty one is not a very successful endeavor. That's particularly true when all of us are being asked in many ways to become novice educators again. I don't know how each of you is doing your work now. I'm guessing that some of you might be teaching in a hybrid format or be working in a school where hybrid learning is occurring with virtual and in-person learning simultaneously. Some of you might be only online, some of you might be wholly back in person. And yet, even if you had exactly the same kids that you did before we all went home in March, it would be a whole new experience. So thank you for taking this time to give back to yourself and to your learning just a little bit. As Lori suggested, this is a quick 45 minutes together. Tria and Lori will lead us through some activities and discussion and learning, and then there will be a little bit of open time at the end for whatever community conversation is helpful. One thing that CTQ has been really pleased to do is to offer up these short little snacks of learning and expertise among the community, just because we've been working in virtual space for a while as an organization and as a community. And this is this sort of survival tactics that you may hear about are the same kinds of things that we in the community we've worked with for a long time have used to refresh ourselves from Zoom fatigue that we had even before now. So thank you for being here. We know that you are already taking care of all of the stressors for yourselves and your staff and your colleagues and your students. So hopefully this also takes care of some of the stress that you are building up along the way. Can't wait to dive in.
All right. So just want to extend part of what Alicia said related to these webinars, that they are snack size bites of larger stacks, a snack of a stack of larger groups of webinars that we have available and are looking forward to sharing with folks. I see a lot of familiar faces in the participant list and a whole bunch of new emerging friends here. So we would surely love for you to introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us know who you are, where you are, what your role is, where you're at. And in the meantime, I'm Lori Nazarino. I'm a former science educator of 25 years. At both the elementary and high school level, and I've had the good fortune to be able to work at CTQ, Center for Teaching Quality, for the last 7 or 8 years, in particularly focusing on collective leadership and bringing this concept of self-care and wholeness and fullness of bringing who we are to the work. Had the opportunity to integrate that into my work too. At this point, I will pass to my colleague Tria Grant to introduce herself to get us started.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tria Grant. I am a former middle school and elementary school educator, and this is my first full year into my second year at CTQ. I'm working with a new alternative certification program called Carolina CAP in South Carolina, and am excited about sharing with you some self-care strategies. A few of these I use with my students, specifically some of my middle school students in an at-risk program that I co-facilitated with a colleague. So I'm looking forward to sharing those with you, with Lori, and also learning from you. So take just a few seconds to read this Facebook post. think a lot of times as educators, we're open all the time for others, and a lot of time that takes away from our cup. So we need to realize that we aren't open all the time. We have to take care of ourselves in order to be helpful to others. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to stop answering emails. It is okay to take care of yourself and not feel guilty about that. So Lori and I looked through some of your responses about what you wanted to get out of today. So we're going to be sure to address the learnings that you'd like to extract from our time together. Going to talk a little bit about the why, the what, and the how self-care. We're going to engage in some activities together. You'll have some strategies to take back with you, to share with your colleagues, to work with your students, and to use on yourself to make sure that you're taking care of your home, taking care of yourself. Throughout the session, this is informal, so if you have questions, if you have suggestions, if you want something repeated, just let us know. No stress. Just be in the moment while we're here together to learn and take things away to assist you when you go back to your jobs. While we will focus a lot on self-care, one of our foci will be on the importance of advocacy, because we can't self-care away our environments or self-care away the challenges. We recognize that we do have challenges, and it is important for us to learn how to advocate for ourselves while we're also taking care of ourselves. So we'll spend some time talking about that when we look at professional self-care. So we're getting ready to go into one of our first activities. Many of you may have engaged in breathing exercises or guided meditation, but that's going to be one of our first activities. Take a look at this quote. If you want to conquer the anxiety of life, live in the moment, live in the breath, live in our time together. You're here now. Try not to think about what's going on around you or what you have to do when you leave here. We're here now. So let's focus on this moment. So we're going to engage in right now a 1-minute guided breathing activity.
Find a comfortable position and sit tall and alert. Softening your shoulders and resting your hands in your lap, allow your eyes to close. Noticing now where you feel contact with the chair or cushion. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe out, allow yourself to become more heavy, calm and relaxed. Letting the breath settle into its own natural rhythm, and with that movement becoming aware of any sensation in the chest. Expanding your awareness now to include the whole of your body. Noticing any sensations with openness and curiosity. Sitting in still awareness. And in your own time, allow your eyes to open.
Okay, I'm going to bring us back in to now. So that's an example of a guided meditation that you could use on your own or with your students or with your faculty in your team meetings. There are guided meditations that are 1 minute up to 15 or more minutes. So let's take a few minutes to talk through this and debrief this. How might you use this strategy on your own, with your students, or working with colleagues? Feel free to share verbally or to put some ideas into the chat box.
I'll share. One of the things that I was thinking about is just how much our teachers are with students right now because of the cohorting situation and, just having a limited number of teachers who can be with them. And somebody mentioned we did a discussion on self-care in one of our PT days. If you need it, they probably need it too. So just being proactive about maybe after lunch, planning to do this with your kids because you're probably going to need it. So giving that time to care for yourself when we're also caring for our students and recognizing they're going to need it too.
Thank you, Jamie. And that's so true. If you're at that point, they are, and vice versa. And again, it's okay to give ourselves time to do that. That's just as important as jumping into the lesson for the day, is that preparation and that setting the tone and setting the focus to be able to receive and give. Natasha, I see, to start a difficult meeting, reopening a meeting, focus, be in the breath, get ready to engage, and then a brain break during PD. Great ideas. How many have you ever, or do you practice breathing breathing techniques already? Is that something that's currently a part of your days? And those of you who are shaking yes, is that something that you typically practice with your students?
I'll go. Hi, I'm Stephanie.
Okay.
I work with Jamie Gannon. So yeah, I practice yoga and meditation every day. I mean, I can't live without it. I do it at my house throughout the day. I have the students practice it in the morning, and I try to practice it when we're already calm too, to like remind them that we can do these things before we're feeling, dysregulated or feeling stressed. And kind of what Jamie was saying, like after lunch, I always just like turn off the lights and have them just sit and be still. And sometimes it's guided, sometimes it's just music, but just that time to calm down, especially after recess, is really important. So that really helps too.
Thank you. So there are so many ways that this can be implemented. And Heather, I see that you placed not enough. So these don't have to be 15 minutes. They don't have to be 10 minutes. You can take 10 to 15 seconds just to be in that moment and take those breaths to really get yourself together. So there's no set amount of time that this has to be done. It's just for you to settle, to set, to center, and be ready to move forward.
Sometimes in our busy world, we just forget that part.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, some of my students remind me, they're like, Mrs. Campbell, take a breath. Remember, you tell us. So be careful, because once you start doing it often, they will bring it back to you, which is great, but it's so cute and it's awesome. But they remind you to breathe too. So it's good. But.
And then think about how you're teaching them, Ms. Campbell, to when they get into a situation. Now they have that tool to take with them. Okay. We're going to take a few moments to next talk about the impact of stress on wellness, and then lead into some more self-care strategies.
So one of the things we always do at CTQ is talk about the why of whatever the content is that we're talking about. So I'll be quiet for a few moments so that you can read the slide. And then for those of you, we would like for you to use the annotate tools to star anything or write on anything that particularly resonates with you, or something that you're experiencing now. So if you don't know how to use the annotate tools, there's a bar that says you're looking at my screen. Up above that, there are 3 dots that say view options. You can click on that, choose annotate, and then you can choose a tool. So again, we'll be quiet for a couple minutes. After you've read, annotate on the screen something that resonates or something that you're experiencing now. Interesting. We have a lot of folks in a lot of different places. Would love to invite a few folks to grab the microphone if you want to share a little bit about what you marked and why.
So I marked the negative effect of stress just because I know that I'm a really positive person. And sometimes people come in and they say, your glasses will change soon. Your rose colors will change colors. And I hope that never happens. And so I'm really careful about that negative influence in my life. And when I happen to have that, what I need to do to get rid of that. So that's something I try to be very mindful of.
Thank you, Heather. One other person, grab the microphone and talk to us.
I'll go. I just resonated with the part that says stress is a part of life. So it's being realistic that these things aren't just going to go away. I mean, we all have stress, but it's about the balance. So the word balance really just stuck out to me. So it's important that we recognize that the stress is not going to go away, but it's how we manage it and how we balance things. So I like that part.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, stress is, the fact that we're alive is a stressor on us. And so just managing what is enough stress to keep us moving and motivated, and being able to sense in ourselves when we might be going over the edge on stress into where it's too much for us to be able to handle, and this notion of being able to sense in ourselves when that is happening, and then having some strategies to be able to address that. And with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and pass this back to Tria to talk to us about different types of self-care and get us involved in a few other additional strategies.
Sure. And I want to highlight what Ms. McNally said about the world being different now. So the symptoms may present differently. So connecting that, Lori, to what you just said about knowing those symptoms, knowing when the stress is coming on. So that's important as well. So thank you. So we're going to focus on today a few types of self-care. There are certainly others, but we're going to focus on a couple today. Let's first take some time to talk about emotional or psychological self-care. And just take a few seconds to look at some of the sources of stress. Those are just a few. It's not an exhaustive list of those sources, but different things that bring it on, bring that stress on. And then we'll talk through some strategies to address those. One is, and we said this earlier, feel your feelings. We don't have to apologize for the way we feel. It is our current state. This is how we feel. So give yourself time to feel those feelings, acknowledge where you are, and then work on ways to address what you're feeling. It could be some type of talking to the person, or addressing the situation, reframing, journaling, but in order to address a source of stress, we need to acknowledge that it's there and allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling. And then focusing on what we want and not what we don't have. Putting that spin on, well, this is what I want. Here's how I can get there, instead of focusing on, I would like to have this. I wish I had that. Focus on what we do have. Another thing that we educators may do is we take on a lot, and sometimes we may feel guilty to say no. Well, no is a complete sentence, and it is okay to say no. And we need to say no. And we need to be okay to say no. We have teams of folks that we can share some of this responsibility. Perhaps there are some things that are not as urgent that can be placed to the side and picked up later. It is okay to say no and to give ourselves time to do that. And then seek help. A connection with a friend, a family member, a spiritual advisor, or professional. And it is okay to seek help. It's okay to seek help when things are fine. Sometimes we need folks to talk to. So those are just a few of the strategies to address that emotional, psychological stress. In fact, many of these strategies that we're going to share can be used for any type of stress that we have. There are strategies that aren't here that can be used to address those types of stress. Two strategies that we want to practice together are engaging, reframing, and gratitude. So with reframing, we're taking our challenging, stressful situation, and we're looking at it from a different vantage point. So instead of focusing on perhaps the most negative aspects of it, even if it is a stressful, challenging, negative situation, we look towards maybe the solutions of it, or think about that situation in a different way. So what I'd like for us to do now for a minute, if you have a sheet of paper, or if you want to just think this through, or if you want to type it up, I'm going to guide us through a sample of a reframing activity. So I'll give yourself a few seconds to settle in. Let's get ready to reframe a situation or a challenge that you're currently experiencing or that you may have experienced before. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, if we haven't done so already, if we're ready, is to think of a stressful or a challenging situation that you're currently experiencing or that you have experienced. So I want you to notice the thoughts that you're having right now about that situation. You can jot those thoughts down or just think them through. Focus on what those thoughts are about that situation. Are those thoughts, and you don't have to answer this, are those thoughts negative? Are those thoughts really focused a lot on the problem? Are they solution oriented? How are they making you feel? So now, any negative thoughts that you may have about this challenging or stressful situation, let's start to reframe those. Let's start to challenge those thoughts. Are those things you're telling yourself about the situation, are they even true? What are some ways to interpret other ways to interpret that same set of events, that same situation? Now we're into the reframing. Which way of seeing these things as you're reframing, which one would better serve you? Can you adopt any thoughts that still fit your situation, but can give you a more positive outlook? What's something else you could tell yourself? Alicia, I like that. What's another story you could tell yourself about this potentially stressful situation? So we've gone through, we have the thoughts, we've focused on what we're thinking about it. We're starting to challenge those thoughts that we're having. Now replace those thoughts, and you may have already started this, replace those thoughts with some more positive thoughts. More solution oriented. So with reframing, it doesn't necessarily happen as quickly as how we just engaged just now. Spend some time thinking through and feeling your thoughts, writing down what you're thinking about the situation, acknowledging where you are. Take time doing that. There is no set time, but you don't have to rush through. Once you have those thoughts, the way you're thinking, then you can go through and start to challenge what's going on and then move into actually reframing that. Ms. Campbell, I like what you placed there. Whatever situation we're in doesn't mean it's joyful right there, but that perspective can help you look at it a different way. This activity, and again, a lot of what we share is also can also be very helpful with our students who may think that everything negative or bad is happening to me. How can we challenge what we're thinking? How can we reframe that to more solution oriented, to change our story, to move forward? I surely can send those questions to you. So that's one activity. Now let's take another moment. Another way to address that emotional stress is to really write statements of gratitude. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some time. I'm going to start my timer this time, actually. And let's take about 1 minute to just write expressions of gratitude. You don't have to share that to the group. That's on your own. So we're writing expressions of gratitude. All right, we're going to start now. All right, give yourself 10 seconds to complete your last thoughts. All right. Again, 2 strategies that we wanted to be sure that you had an opportunity to practice with, so you could think through how that could be helpful to you, how you could incorporate that with faculty or team meetings, and then how you could incorporate that with your students as well. Before we move on to professional self-care, we're going to take some time there. Is there anything someone would like to share about any one of those activities?
I'll go. When I was writing this, I think sometimes like throughout my day, I think of like the big things that I want. But honestly, when I just wrote a few things, it was things that are basic to, seems like to me, but are not basic to a lot of other people. So just having like food, shelter, being healthy, I mean, things that I definitely take for granted, but are so important and so grateful to have. So it's not the big things really, it's the little things, but those are big things. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, I'm going to pass it on over to Lori, and she's going to guide us through professional self-care.
Thank you so much. And just one more statement on this gratitude, like the more we focus our attention on the things that we're grateful for, the more we see of those things and the more we draw them to ourselves, right? So even this, what we in American culture consider basic, right? Water, food, shelter, a bed to sleep in. There are a lot of folks around the world who don't have those things. And so the more we focus on those blessings, the more blessings we bring into our life. We're going to briefly talk, I wanted to briefly address issues of professional self-care. And just fair warning that while donuts and Starbucks cards and Teacher Appreciation Day and week are nice, we at CTQ want to frame this professional self-care around a bigger frame. I'm going to stop for a moment so we can take a look at the slide, but just know that I'm going to talk beyond, like I said, the Starbucks cards and donuts, which are nice and not sufficient. So I want to talk a few things that aren't on the slide in terms of self-care, sort of technical, working in virtual space sorts of things. Things like, I'm looking at another building over there. So I separate we strongly suggest that folks separate workspace from home space. It's one of the weird things about this virtual world we're living in. We may be sitting at the same desk or table to work and to have dinner and to have hard conversations with our family and to have celebrations with our family, which confuses the energy in that space. So even if you know, whatever works for you, it might be even at this end of the table I'm working, and at that end of the table is where I am a family member and a mom or a sister or brother, uncle, but you know, but separating those spaces separates the energy associated with them, because we're living in this kind of work and real life, and our kids and our families and significant others are all in the same space. Another strategy is, it is super easy, and I need to follow my own advice here, to sit in this chair all day long. So setting a timer every 30, 45 minutes going, stand up, move around, which gets to physical self-care, which is all embedded in this work thing. And then being super mindful about how you're sitting and how your space is set up. I am fortunate to have the resources to have a desk that that moves up and down with me as I want to stand up and sit down, but there are other ways that you can do that. Like I have a $20 little device here that allows me to have my computer up so I look straight ahead. And I have a separate keyboard so that I'm not hunched over my laptop all day, because that definitely takes its toll on your body as you're working in this virtual space. Now, the bigger issue around professional well-being, and I'm keeping an eye on the clock here, toxic positivity. I see several nods on the screen, so I'd love for folks to talk to us. For those who may not have heard about it, can you share with us what you know about toxic positivity, and why would I bring this up in professional self-care?
I'll share. I've only heard about it a little bit, but the idea of people who are positive, or me feeling like I'm a positive person, but then also feeling like that positivity has to stay at a certain level at all times, no matter what's happening, or someone in that I work with, or someone in my circle always being positive and ignoring really important issues that that could affect me, or could affect my job, or could affect us as a group, and overlooking those issues without looking for solutions to them, and just staying positive instead of problem solving.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And being in a woman-dominated profession, this idea that there's an expectation that educators always be nice and always be positive and see the sunny side. Well, you know what, educators, you have a lot to be frustrated about, a lot to be angry about, a lot to be sad about, and can name all of those other emotions and feelings around this really kind of challenging time that we're living in. And so one of the ways to address that is then this group practice that's listed here, is to identify an area of advocacy. So when we see something that is not equitable for our students, or we see things where educators are being asked or told to do things that are not safe or healthy, or in the best interest of whomever the target is of that thing, like, it's okay to be upset, and it's okay, and we strongly suggest that you advocate for what a better practice of that would be. I am going to move us to our Padlet, because we definitely want to do some crowdsourcing of information here, because we can tell just by the comments here, you all have awesome strategies that we would love for you to share with us. And we will be sure that we get these sent out to you as a follow-up, thank you for attending sort of gift, in the Padlet. So I'm dropping the link to a Padlet here, where we would like to take just 2 or 3 minutes for folks to share your own strategies that you might have for emotional and psychological well-being, professional, physical, or spiritual. I definitely want to hear from you and learn some of your strategies. So, and if you don't know where it belongs, just drop it in there. We'll figure it out. let's just take one more minute. And if you would finish whatever note you're writing, we will leave this open for the rest of the day if folks are interested in coming back and adding some more ideas. So at this point, 45 minutes goes fast. And in the spirit of keeping a micro webinar micro, Tria, give us our next steps.
All right. So think through one self-care strategy you're going to do tonight and commit to trying that strategy. Doesn't have to be anything that takes a long time. It could be breathing for 30 seconds. Pick a strategy you want to try and give yourself that time, honor yourself to try it. And then as an exit from our session, leave with a statement of gratitude. You could think about that statement, place the statement in the chat box, verbally express it, or just think about it privately. So 2 next steps. One strategy you're going to try tonight. Could be a strategy you used to do and stopped. Start that one again, and then leave with a statement of gratitude.
Don't leave quite yet. Let's wrap up really quickly here. So just so you know, the next webinar in the series, it will address this issue of folks who are doing hybrid teaching, meaning they have little ones or big ones in the room and they are online. We know of an educator who coined this as Zoomies and Roomies. So we are in search of folks who have some strategies to share around that. We don't have that date finalized just yet, but trust me, you will be the first to know when we have that date finalized if you want to join us. And then we would love for you to give us some feedback about our time together here. We definitely use it to guide our next steps and inform how we proceed from here. And I have dropped that SurveyMonkey link in the chat box. If you will I just saw it. Somebody said, never mind, about sending everybody Starbucks cards. I would love to if I could. No, we're not doing that. But so thank you very much for taking some time out of your very, very busy, busy days. Thank you most importantly for taking time for yourself to pause, breathe, be present with us, and share your brilliance. And we wish you well. And we will hold on here because we're going to do a little coloring book activity to take us out of our time together. So if you'd like to hang around and do a little group mandala coloring, we're going to use those annotation tools and we can chit chat. Otherwise, have a terrific day and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Lori, did you say